I mean, I got to tell you how bad I gotten the other day.
NBA Centel?
No, it's worse than that, actually. In fact, I don't even know what it was because I didn't look at the source, but it was clearly from the Olympics, right? And I was thinking, oh, okay, maybe this person didn't put out this content yet. They were holding tight. And the question being asked was, when did you lose your virginity? And the first answer was Steph Curry. And Steph Curry said 19. And he said it took me that long. And I was like, wait a second. If Steph's answering this question, everybody else, I guess they're going to answer it, right? And they just kept going. And the numbers kept getting smaller, until they got to Bam. And Bam said 11. And I was like, oh, 11? I was like the kid from Almost Famous. Like, oh, 11? And then I came in today. And I was talking on the production meeting for the show, and they told me that the question was actually, when did you first dunk?
Dunk, yeah, because Steph said 2 hands, 2 feet.
I mean, that I didn't get it.
And then he said it was a big day on campus at Davidson.
I thought he was talking about counting how old he was. 2 hands, 2 feet. I don't know what you were talking about. Although it does make sense now. The follow-up question for Bam was, how tall were you at 11? Yeah. Wasn't my follow-up question.
Welcome to Oddball. Hey, it's Amin Elhassan. It's Izzy Gutierrez. We're in the same room. I'm going to point out every single time we're in the same room because it's such a special experience.
It is.
Yeah. And you know what, Izzy? This week we had MVP week. This was the week. This was the referendum. Is it Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Is it Nikola Jokic? On Sunday, the Thunder beat the Nuggets. They ran away within the fourth quarter. Shai was amazing. And everyone said, well, there it is. MVP race is over. That proved it. And then the very next night, in the same damn building, Nikola Jokic reminded the world, not so fast, my friend, as the Nuggets blew out the Thunder, which is a big deal because that's only the 3rd time this season the Thunder have lost a game by 10 or more points, Izzy. So now that we have an answer and a response, what is your response? Who is le MVP?
Well, how much do you really pay attention to these games? Like the MVP candidate versus the MVP candidate? Because obviously it's a body of work situation. Yes. And I think we got caught up a little bit maybe in the Joel Embiid versus Nikola Jokic because they played the same position. We wanted to see them play each other. How much do you actually care what they do against the opposing MVP candidate?
I mean, I care when the race is as close as it feels like it is right now. Okay. And so they know this is an important game. It's also an important game outside of who they're playing against because for Denver, they're trying to get the 2 seed. They're jostling right there with Memphis, with the Lakers. So these games mean something, right? For Oklahoma City, they're trying to get the 1 seed throughout the NBA Finals. Because remember, Cleveland over there is having an amazing season as well. So these games mean something. They're both playing for something. So to me, it's yes, they're playing against each other, but also they're playing against each other in a game with stakes.
Yeah, I don't really, I've never been around a team that says, yeah, we need to get that home court advantage in the finals. It's like they want their 1 seed on their side, and that's what they're working for. It feels like to me, and I don't know if you can sort of skew this one way or the other, but it feels like to me that the Thunder don't really have as much to play for, clearly, unless you want to talk about that finals thing, but they are more sort of focused on getting SGA this MVP. But if you're actually
focused on that, that's
not entirely focused, right? But it's just sort of the human nature of it. Like if you're, I mean, if these guys were watching basketball coverage, you're going to talk about their teammate is being talked about all the time. They look at the standings and say, wow, that's a double figure cushion for that number 1 seed. I'm good. Like as a team, I know we can win any different style. We know what we're going to do in the playoffs. Let's get this man this MVP. And so it feels like what Joker is doing is still carrying this team on his back and doing it every single quarter of every single game. And while there is that gap in between, I think the big question here is how much do you put team success into making the biggest difference in the MVP race, right? Because if we're talking about numbers, we can get there in a second. But in terms of what he does for his team, if it's a 10-game difference in the standings, how much are you going to put, stakes into that?
I mean, I would argue that, first of all, that, again, it is meaningful. They do need this, right? Second of all, I would say that from the standpoint of who means what to what, I mean, we have a game plan for how to beat the Thunder that people try to do, and it starts with get the ball out of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's hands. It's make Jalen Williams prove it to us. Make Chet Holmgren prove it to us. I mean, I would argue that Shai means a lot too. And that's other than the stat line, right? Jokic top 3 in points, rebounds, and assists per game. That's never happened in the history of the NBA. So the stat line is definitely egregious. But when you talk about, hey, my team needs me, I mean, I think Shai has a pretty strong argument for that as well.
Of course. And look, that's why he's up there. Yeah. To me, I think there is quite a gap between them. I think it's Joker and then a gap and then SGA. But we had Nikola Jokic talk about this. And this is a guy who doesn't exactly really talk about himself very much. Like when he talks about, I had that 30-20-20 game. What's he going to do? Like 40 years from now, sit in his home and be like, wow, I had a really good game that one time. So he's not really about like pumping himself up, but he did in this situation. Like he said, this is my 3rd or 4th year in a row, basically an MVP contention. I cannot control it. I think I'm playing the best basketball of my life. So if that's enough, it's enough. If not, SGA deserves it. Dude, that is the most that guy has ever flexed on anybody, because he's telling you right now, look, I've won 3 of these. People discuss me as possibly the greatest player in the world right now and going to be talked about by the time I retire as one of the greatest of all time. I'm having the best season I've ever had by my own measure, and I don't measure myself very much.
Right.
If SGA is having a better season, fine. But man, that's going to have to be an amazing season.
That's how you interpreted
that. That's exactly how I interpret that.
I think, yes, I've never heard him talk about himself like that before, but I also think he was saying what we say every year, it feels like, for the MVP race. Hey, guess what? All these guys are really good and deserving. It's like, it's half a dozen of one and 6 of the other.
But he could say that in a normal way that doesn't create any waves. It's like, everybody's deserving, I don't care. I mean, that's exactly how he would say it if he didn't care.
Right.
But he cares.
It's just the first time I've ever heard him have that kind of vulnerability, I guess, in that way. His head coach, Michael Malone of the Nuggets, made this point earlier this week.
My thing is this, if you didn't know that Nikola won 3 MVPs, and I put player A and player B on paper, and you had no idea that the guy who's averaging a triple-double, the guy who's top 3 in the 3 major statistical categories, things that no one's ever done, he wins the MVP 10 times out of 10. And if you don't think so, I think you guys are all full of shit.
So let's indulge Coach Malone.
Let's see how full of shit we are.
Yeah, and let's put up the head-to-heads, the blind head-to-heads. I wonder who's who.
I'm player B. No, look, it's pretty obvious. Like you've got Nikola out there with 29, 13, and 10, and even the percentages. Like, show me the writer. Show me the one standout who's going to. Is it Shaq? Show me the one NBA coverage person who was going to say, "Oh, player A clearly because of the points."
Okay, so let me say this. It's a little disingenuous. He's right to a point that yes, there's a thing called voter fatigue, where we just got tired of giving Michael Jordan MVP, so we gave one to Karl Malone and one to Tim Duncan, whatever, right?
Should have been Alonzo.
And we got tired of giving LeBron MVPs, so we gave one to Derrick Rose and one to whoever, right?
Huge mistake.
So like that's a real thing. However, if he were saying blind resumes, the thing that's missing on this blind resume is one guy has the number 1 seed in the league, definitely in the conference, right? And one guy doesn't. One guy's team beats all the best teams. And one guy's team is 3-10 against the top 6 teams. So it's like, that's an element of the blind resume that he's not factoring in, because ultimately, Izzy, to me, this is an argument born out of what MVP means.
Correct.
The league does not define what most valuable player is. It says, when you ask them, they say, what does it mean to you? And so people take it one of 2 ways. Either the guy who is clearly having a great statistical season, like Jokic is, or the guy who is most responsible for the success of one of the most successful, if not the most successful team in the league, which is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. There's no statistical argument that's going to make Shai look better than Jokic. That's, look, like Coach said, it's never happened. We're talking about things that Wilt never did, right? But at the same time, there's no success argument that Jokic can have, not just because they don't have as many wins or even close to as many wins as Oklahoma, but again, because of their failures against the other great teams in the league this year.
Well, so my issue there is how many statistics, if you want to just throw the stats onto that, how is that going to boost SGA statistics, the 10 wins? Because I look at the 10-win difference. I look at him, the Nuggets being 3-10 against the best teams and saying, okay, they've won 3. They're working through an injury, probably plagued season with Aaron Gordon being out a lot. Murray hasn't really been injured, but has been inconsistent somewhat. And yet, with these insane numbers, best we've seen in forever, he is still keeping his team not just afloat, but what we call it, top 4 in the Western Conference, which is a difficult place to be. So how do you measure that versus SGA? Because normally I would say, if he was in a different conference and sitting in the 8th seed, and be like, oh yeah, that guy's not getting my votes. Yeah. But they're close enough to where I think it's clear which one is doing more of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Right. And this isn't Russell Westbrook winning MVP as a 6th seed. This is a guy through all of that. They're still really good. They're still winning. Again, you say injuries. I could say, look, they started the year no Chet Holmgren, no Isaiah Hartenstein. And then when Hartenstein came back, Holmgren was hurt. Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams, was hurt for a long time. So they've had their fair share of injuries for a team that we know struggles against size. So in a very vulnerable place. But I think when you talk about statistics and winning, the best thing I can do is I could turn to, this is my favorite catch-all stat. I'm not a fan of catch-all stats, but this one's my favorite, which is EPM, estimated plus minus. This is from dunksandthrees.com. This is where they filter out all the noise, who your teammates were, who the opponents were, who was on the floor, what happened, how much of that plus minus was your responsibility. And you want to talk about splitting hairs? Nikola Jokic leads the NBA with a plus 8.7. Number 2 is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, plus 8.5.
Look, Okay, so I don't know. I don't have a reference point to how small that margin is, but I don't trust any statistic that starts with estimated because somebody's guessing something there. You know what I mean? What could have happened or what should happen.
It's not someone guessed. I think he's an 8. It's not like a
I think
if
you look at it this way, I think a lot of what you're doing and what voters are doing is like gymnastics, which is just another way to save voter fatigue. Yep. Because if you took away the 3 MVPs and say this was the first season that you've seen Nikola Jokic do this is the first season you've seen SGA do this, you're picking Nikola Jokic every damn time. Every damn time. And even your statistic there, which is a catch-all statistic, as you said tonight, okay, it's also Jokic. Maybe a razor-thin margin, but it's also Jokic. So to me, you look at every single measurement except for the one, which is team wins, which, again, team award, not necessarily individual award. Jokic has it.
I could say that Shai's a better defensive player. I could start making defensive conversations and arguments. But here's a fun question for you, Izzy. Who should be 3rd? Like everyone's wondering. Let's do that.
All MVP first team.
Let's be the show that has violent arguments, heated arguments about who should be 3rd.
Right, I'm gonna go ahead and say it's Giannis, and by a landslide. Giannis, I'm telling you, there's a conspiracy theory out there that says the NBA is not talking about Giannis anymore because they want Giannis in a bigger market. And that's why he's all of a sudden gone into like underrated mode and nobody's talking about him.
I like that one. But speaking of underrated, how many more tattoos does Jason Tatum have to get to let you guys know he's good?
He's got to get an MVP one right there where you can see the P kind of sticking out of his jersey.
Him, Giannis, and LeBron, they're all tied for 3rd best odds at plus 50,000 on DraftKings. But let's take a quick breather here. On the other side of this break, Icy Plays. That's a new segment? Is it because it's so cold in here? All right, welcome back to Oddball, and it's time to play a new game. It's called Iciest Play of the Week. It's very cold in this room. So this week, it's going to be Tyrese Haliburton's 4-point dagger with 3 seconds left to beat the Bucks last night.
Hang on a second. How did they get a photo of me actually freezing? Like, that's the face I have when I'm ice cold.
Really?
Like, that's crazy.
I'm always ice cold. Great job, guys. I got the ice cold stare right there. It's blue steel. The 4-point dagger. I think it was Giannis who ran through him, and Doc said it's not Giannis' fault.
Can't talk about Giannis.
No, we can't talk about him, but we can talk about how the Pacers, the Bucks, and the Pistons were all tied in the standings, 4, 5, 6 in the East. Haliburton had a slow start to the season. He turned around since All-Star break.
The funniest part about the Pacers, first of all, the play real quick. What a play. Like, they ran a football I'm both offensive and defensive coordinator on my flag football team sometimes, but as the offensive coordinator, it was a pretty decent play. And I know the Bucks had no clue what to do with it. Yeah. to hit that running, fading to your left three-pointer whilst keeping your feet inbounds and getting fouled, probably outside of Steph Curry's in a world of his own, category of his own, the most difficult play shooting-wise I've seen all season.
Yeah. Right? I can't think of one that was harder than that. That one was a pretty tough shot.
But my favorite part about the Pacers is he, in terms of all-star appearances and numbers, not their best player. In theory, it's Pascal Siakam.
Yeah.
So you've got Tyrese Haliburton sort of coming back into form and being all-star level Tyrese.
Right.
Like that's pretty damn good. And that's better than they were last year when they got to a conference finals.
Can I posit a crazy take here?
Oh, I thought you said, can I pause it? No, we're live.
The Pacers are better off dropping to the 6th seed, getting the Knicks in the first round, and then playing Boston in the second round.
So you're saying avoiding a 4-5 in that scenario, which would be who, the Bucks?
Well, it'd be the Bucks, but also avoiding the Cavs
in the second round. I don't
yeah.
think the Pacers. It's odd. Like, what are their expectation levels? Like, are they a team that expects to get back to the Final Four?
I think internally, yeah, man. Really? Like especially how they played recently, and since
then I don't care who I play. Then I take that 4 seed, I get my home court, and I play against a team that kind of own in the Milwaukee Bucks.
Fair enough.
And then get to the second round, see what happens.
All right, this has been the Iciest Play of the Week. It's presented by Jägermeister.
Shout out to Young.
Best served at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Damn, that's cold. Check Jägermeister out at www.draftkings.com. All right, let's get the classic watch, the classic match, the classic. Again, we picked a couple of games a couple of weeks ago that turned out to be really good, and now we've got to pick classics every single week, Izzy. But the NBA has no shortage of these, do they?
And late in the season, and this is why I love looking at the schedule. So there's some teams that are going through sort of a very tough series of games late in the season, and right now it might be the Oklahoma City Thunder. This week alone, or the next 7 days alone, we're talking at the Celtics, at the Bucks, at the Pistons. And if my theory from earlier in the show was right, and maybe they don't have as much to play for with such a cushion, maybe they, back off a little bit, pull off the throttle a little bit and get throttled. So all of that is possible in this 3-game set. And I also think the Celtics, the type of team that is just sort of waking up at certain points of the season and just trying to this is one of those.
Oh, for sure. Like the Saturday game against the Lakers last week, right?
This is the only time they come into their building.
Clearly, they woke up and said, oh, no, you guys like these guys? You guys think they're doing well? Look, we're going to shut them all down, right? And I could see the same thing happening. The other thing about this is the other 2 games, Bucks and Pistons, are not easy games. But I do think there was a part earlier in the season where they looked at the schedule like, oh, I can't wait till we get this Bucks and Pistons in a couple of games of each other. Oh, that'll be nice.
About 10 games into the season, they were like, wow, it's going to be an easy stretch.
Jeez, man, things change so quick. All right, for me, I'm going to go with Cavs versus Grizzlies, another East-West matchup. Cavs, obviously, playing for the number 1 overall seed, even though Izzy doesn't believe that. Grizzlies playing for that 2 seed in the West. So I'd love to see, we got great guard play, Ja versus Donovan Mitchell. Obviously, Jaren Jackson Jr. still in and out of the lineup, but we'll see how that goes.
That 2-seed race in the West, like we mentioned, the 4-seed race in the East, that 2-seed race is crazy, intriguing, if not just for the matchups, but just like who's the number 2 seed in the West? Like it's something to be proud of, right? It's a high slot there. And Memphis, would seem to be out of nowhere, at least going into the season, right? As a number 2. Well, Houston, who still has a shot, would definitely be out of nowhere. It feels like the team that's supposed to get that spot. The Lakers as well.
Out of nowhere.
And because of the sudden change in the season, it feels like the Nuggets should cozy up into that spot and just claim ownership.
The big thing about the 2 seed, okay, so we're going to get into nerddom around the play-in, right? On paper, you want to be a 2 seed because then I get to play a play-in team at the 7 versus the 3, you got to play a 6. But given that the 6 and the 7 are so close, they're pretty much around the same caliber of team. And also, if you're the 3 seed, you play the 6, you know who you're going to play. That means play-in week, you're practicing and game planning for the 6 seed all week long versus when you're the 2 seed, you have to wait to see who's going to be the 7 seed. It does short tail the time. And of course, the 1 seed has it worse. They've got to wait till the entire play-in is over before they figure out who they're going to play in the first round.
That does seem like an unnecessary knock for the teams that finish in the top 2 in each conference. It's only, especially number 1 seed, because you'd say for the 7 seed, it's only, no, actually, for both of them.
Yeah, for both of them. But except the 7 seed, when they win, that first night or whatever, okay, immediately everyone knows. Versus the 1 seed has to wait until the end of the play-in to figure out who the 8 seed is going to be.
You should never have to worry about the 8 seed.
You shouldn't, but also the Western Conference is weird, and you get some really great teams that can be there. This is why I keep saying, stop being cowards. Let them pick their opponents.
Ugh.
We play pick your opponents as a 1 seed. Now you're.
I mean, that's a whole television show in itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. What do we got next? We got Prop-A-Slot. Prop-A-Slot is the game where we pick slots and plops and stuff. It's presented by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
I mean, you know the rules, I believe. We take a pick. These are actual prop bets on DraftKings. And if we don't like one, we can go ahead and hit the slot machine and lever and do it again. If we get through the third one and we don't like any of them, we can take the parlay of the opposite of all three, which we haven't done yet. We've always sort
Still
of
waiting on that
lingered on one, but let's hit it. What's the first
First spin. Sound effects, visual effects. Can't see because they're too small. I'm just going to go off of the teleprompter. Oh, no, here we go.
Oh.
It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander under 33.5 points.
I hate unders, but that's a big number. I also am going to sort of really re-examine. I think I talked to you about this.
Mm-hmm.
I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the biggest foul baiter in the league, and there's no question about it.
Foul merchant is what we call it. That's a much more sophisticated term. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. This is going for minus 115 on DraftKings Sportsbook. Izzy, what do you think? Are we taking this one?
I don't love it because he is in MVP chase, and so maybe he's going to try to get his numbers up. But it also feels like a big number, and it's at the Celtics, and it's like that should be a good defensive team in theory.
Yes, good defensive team. Yes, they've got the bodies. Remember, they could put Tatum, Brown, or Holiday, or even Derek White on. That's 4 different people that they can use. But also, I feel like it's a big game. The Thunder want to. This is a possible finals preview. If I'm Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and I know there's no J-Dub, I'm going to go out there and put on a show.
All right, well, if I'm Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, no, if I'm the Celtics, though, I get this team one time in my home. It's the last time they're playing this season. I want to see how well I can defend Shai because if we get to the finals, decent chance it's going to be Shai.
Yeah.
So I think this under might.
You like this one?
I like it. I kind of like it, but I'm going to trust you.
No,
you seem like you've had better luck with gambling with me than me, at least on this show. So let's spin the wheel.
All right, let's spin it again.
It's not a wheel. It's 3 wheels.
It's a lever. Spin the lever. No, you're not spinning levers. What am I talking about? Okay, next up, we've got.
Okay, I see what we're doing here. Another MVP candidate.
Nikola Jokic over 1.5 threes made. That's minus 115 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. It's T-Wolves at Nuggets. Rudy likes to hang out in the paint.
He does. But the other day against the Thunder, I want to say that Jokic hurt his elbow. Right?
Yes.
And then he missed, I think, his next 5, 6, several threes. And I'm wondering if he's still not really feeling it.
Yeah.
So
also, the other thing I would say is we talk about Rudy, but Naz Reid is really the Jokic antidote or whatever you want to call it. So, and Naz Reid can move around on the outside. I don't like this one.
He's only got to hit 2, though.
You only got to hit 2. All
right, let's spin it again. Spin it again.
Take a look.
Who is the third MVP candidate if there was one?
I like to look at the faces. Kyrie's in there. I don't know why.
Ooh, it's Ja Morant, and it's over 25.5 points. That's at minus 115. The Jazz are visiting the Grizzlies. This one I kind of like. I'm going to have you talk me off of this one because he's averaged 29 in his last 4. 29 and 8, actually, in his last 4. Been playing really well since Triple J went down. I think it's the Jazz. I think Ja's going to go crazy.
I think he's going to go crazy, too. Here's the risk. What if he goes too crazy too quickly and this game is over?
If he goes too crazy too quickly, he's sitting in the third with 26 points. So I think we still hit this over.
All right.
I think we're taking it.
I think we'll take the Ja Morant. Absolutely. Last thing that we got here, my buddy Shaq had a tough night last night. He had a bunch of goofs, but the worst of which is he congratulated Chauncey Billups on turning the Pistons around.
What a story that would be, man. Chauncey Billups comes back to the place where he won finals MVP, really kickstarts this team. Oh no, JB Bickerstaff.
Same That's what he did. Same I love you, Shaq. I watched that same video. At first I was like, holy These guys are really open about it. And then as the ages got younger, I'm like, this is weird.
Why does Tyrese Haliburton have his dad have a video of him having sex with
that was the one where I was like, okay, like what's happening here?
I went straight to the comments, and the comments were like, I'm gonna have to see that video.